Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, joined by Connor, and we are going to talk about Superman and Lois, Season 1, Episode 5. It's called The Best of Smallville. That title fills me with terror. It also makes me think this is going to be a short episode. Because I'm like, well, Best of Smallville, that could be what, 8 minutes runtime, maybe?
Maybe like 12.
For anyone confused, I'm joking about the TV show Smallville. I'm just making digs at a show that is not very good.
I feel like we've spent at least a quarter of the time reviewing this show, digging on Smallville, and can't say I regret any of that time.
For the record, I don't think it's because it's a Superman show. I think it's just purely because it's set in Smallville.
Yeah.
So the comparisons are there to be made, and also because we've got teenage characters, but I think it's just mainly set in. So I suppose funny is that there's some flashbacks in this episode, and we see. I'll borrow my first critique of this episode. This is the episode of Bad Wigs, but Martha Kent in the flashbacks, because we just did a Star Trek: The Next Generation, where the one bit of interesting trivia about the guest star was that she ended up being Martha Kent in this, is that I could actually tell this because we actually get to see her speaking. I was like, oh, I reckon that's his Data's girlfriend. I recognize her.
Yeah,
I can see her. So 30 years of a difference, but I can see her in there. But yeah, so this episode develops the Lex stuff a little bit. Some for better, some for worse. We'll talk about that. We have more stuff with the teens. Again, some for better, some for worse. I think that's kind of a trend almost in this episode, is that there was good things, there was good moments and good details, but there was also some weaker moments. I think to start with the Lex stuff, maybe they've got some really interesting stuff to do with this, and whatever, we'll see. But there's a bit of a swerve at the end of the episode because Lex makes contact with Lois. His computer, his AI, is like, we found Lois Lane, and he's spying on her. And then he comes up and speaks to her and presents himself as, someone. He's got an alias. He's like, hey,
tends to be some journalist.
Yeah, I'm a reporter too, but my background's in engineering. And, maybe I've got some stuff on Morgan Edge. But at the end of the episode, when he sees her with Clark, he gets really upset. And there's a moment where I'm like, oh, I think I know what this is about to tell us. And it felt a little bit iffy about it. And it's that on his Earth, him and Lois were married. But for some reason, Lois and his, even though he's very different from our Lex, I suppose Superman looks the same. So it's 50-50 apparently.
Multiverse shenanigans.
Yeah.
Some people are different, some aren't. I can buy that.
Yeah, whatever. But there's a quick scene of her seeing him off when he's away to army. To use that.
Away to army.
That was intentional. So the Arrested Development reference. Watch some TV, sweetheart. Look it up. It's called television, right? Well, you tried to make me sound dumb, and I had to put you in your place. All right, end of discussion.
You could have just said it was a reference. You didn't have to go all in.
Yes, I did. Right. So he kisses her, and a part of me just sort of sighed and went, did they just turn this into a love triangle? did this plot just become a love triangle?
I mean, technically yes, but also no, because it's not really his Lois. It's a different Lois entirely.
Logically, that makes sense, but it's not obviously the exact same thing because it's not like her. Oh, she's going to have to choose, but of course she's not choosing this Lex from another universe. But no. Part of me did go, this is a little love triangle somehow. They've somehow turned this into a little bit of love triangle.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't despise it. It's like, yeah, it's fine. It's never a choice I would have made, but it's not it doesn't make me angry.
Yeah, I'm not angry, but there was a feeling. Like, I had a moment. I was sort of went, ugh, okay.
It was more just it's a CW show.
Okay. I do have critiques of the episode, though. I think...
I will say, though, I think it's a more well-rounded episode than last week's.
I think that's fair. It's not as overstuffed.
Yeah.
There may be as many missteps, but it's not as overstuffed. I've got a few missteps. One would be, so one of the plot lines, and of course, the concept here is fine, which is the son who had disappeared has come back. Clearly Morgan Edge has put him back. So if he can't kill the story by murdering the mother and the reporters, you know what, we'll conveniently just give them back the man. And all of a sudden, the mum doesn't want to look into it anymore, even though Lois and the other lady, the other reporter lady, are like, this is still very fishy. They still someone tried to kill you. We should still look into this. There's something going on here still. So, but I thought he wasn't the best actor.
Putting it lightly, yeah.
It would be my polite way of saying that. So that kind of hurt things a little bit with his scenes. And some of that was like, again, like some of what happened with him I thought was solid enough. Like him having heat vision that just like erupts out of nowhere. One ties into everything we've been seeing with Morgan Edge having various people with Kryptonian-esque abilities.
I'm starting to wonder, does this tie into Jordan's powers in some way? Like, are his powers not actually inherited, but it's maybe he got exposed to some of this ex-kryptonite out there, and just because he has some Kryptonian biology, he's harnessed it a little better, perhaps?
Yeah, they could go that route. They could also go the route that, like, him becoming exposed to it may actually unlock them to their full potential. Like, it's natural that he's gotten what he's got, but you know, or alternatively, Jonathan Ismay, he ends up also, but in the same vein that you just said, maybe his body handles it because he is actually technically part Kryptonian. So that's a good question, because obviously this guy's unstable and he eventually essentially self-erupts.
It like melts.
Yeah. And what was funny is Lois assumes that he chose to do that, and I was glad that Clark immediately said, no, I don't think he had control. I think that was more just that his body was shutting down.
I get, though, why Lois might think that, because she didn't see it.
She was thinking cyanide pill kind of moment.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I think in context, I don't think she was like asking a stupid question. It would have been weird if Clark didn't, correct. Then we'd be complaining, well, they, completely misplayed one of these two scenes.
Actually, what's just occurring to me, did Clark ever even question the fact that someone hit him with a rocket launcher during that scene? Because Lex...
no, I don't think he knew exactly what happened in that moment.
Yeah, it's never. I mean, admittedly, it's a big moment of confusion. He's chasing the other guy. They're both flying through the air, and then Lex just sort of. But what really made me laugh though is that when Lex, after he fires the rocket, he pulls up to where the crater is, and obviously it does the thing.
Pistol.
We just missed him, but yeah, he's got a handgun. I'm like, do you have Kryptonian bullets in that? What's that going to do?
The thing is, maybe he does. Like. There's no guarantee with Lex Luthor that he doesn't have kryptonite bullets. I
know, but I was just like, wow, what's the point of the pistol?
Just to make him feel better.
I mean, the rocket barely did anything, to be honest. Like, what do you think the pistol's going to do?
It knocked him down and, threw him off, which I buy, right?
Aye, knocked him over, and then he get back up and went, oh, that stung a little bit.
That was weird.
Oh, just brush off the dust and get back on my way.
Exactly.
It was basically his attitude. Because there was a whole sub thing with this though, where Edgy's like henchwoman like kisses the guy before she puts him into the machine thing that's like messing with his powers.
I'm very confused about their relationship and how much she's on the books for Lex with what's happening here, and like how much she's just using him and like, this is how we control him.
You said Lex, you mean Edge?
Yes. Yeah, sorry. Slip of the tongue.
But we're dealing with both characters, so I thought it was worth pointing out which one.
Yeah. I don't know how much it's like, oh yeah, because at one point she goes, oh, don't worry, we won't tell him. I'm like, I don't know if that's sincere or if she's just like saying this to get him to go along with it.
Yeah, especially since he's already gone, it feels kind of weird. Like, is it even going to come up again?
Right.
Who this guy is, or like, is she going to like monologue and say, "No, this is why I'm betraying you, Morgan Edge, because he was the love of my life, and he died."
Right. Like, I legitimately don't know though. I don't feel like it was clear in the scene.
And we barely know her character yet, so we're not really buying into like someone else related or connected to her. So
yeah.
So that was a little bit on the odd side. They actually fire in like the community center because they're doing the Harvest Festival. Everyone's like donating stuff to sell it like a fair, and this burns down the community center. Everyone gets it, which it's like this is a minor nitpick, right? And I totally buy in the course of a year one person would be involved in everything I'm about to list, but we've only had 5 episodes, and Lana's already had like 4 different like volunteer style roles in the town. She's so not only does she work at the back, she volunteers to coach the cheerleading squad.
Yeah.
She goes to these like community events and with her husband and makes speeches and whatnot. She's also arranging this fair and accepting all the donations. So, and don't get me wrong, over the course of the year, I buy that one person does this amount of things, but we've seen all this in what feels like the span of a few weeks.
We just happened to come in at a really busy period of our
I'm
life.
just saying. Like,
I think the thing is, like, this one is an unavoidable one.
Mm-hmm.
You can't put this somewhere else in the year because, like,
True.
that's kind of the whole thing.
I'm just saying that if next episode she's doing something else, I'm going to start thinking it's funny. Every time they introduce her doing something else.
It might become a drinking game.
It may become a bit of a joke. But it's a minor. It doesn't really affect anything. But I mean, I'm starting to notice like just how involved she is in the town.
No, do you know what it is? She's the new Martha.
Yes, okay, sure. She's the new Martha. She's trying to stay away from her drunk husband, which is also brought up in this episode. But you know what?
Has it really established before this that he's regularly drunk? Because I don't remember this.
I think we've seen him drinking before. This is the first time it told us maybe that he has a specific problem.
Because it felt like I can't believe I'm going to defend Kyle of all things here. But in the specific scene where he comes home after having a couple of drinks, and the point here of the scene is he's been out with his work buddies because one of them's in the hospital, right? So it's kind of a little bit of a get together, and it's a sort of scenario where I buy that they had a few drinks and it kind of went a bit far, sort of thing. And on its own, that wouldn't feel weird to me. It's only her reaction that's like, oh, this feels like an ongoing problem, and it feels weird that I don't remember this being established beforehand.
I'm okay with this being what introduces it. I actually think what does a better job of introducing it is Sarah's interactions with them. One where she makes some food, like this is a regular thing, because not even just that she makes some food, but she tells her mum to leave and go to the thing. She's no, I'll take care of him. You go and this feels like a normal event. The other thing, of course, is how she reacts to Jonathan being drunk later. She clearly is recognizing elements of her father in Jonathan and going, no, this is awful, don't become this. And we're all at home going, yes, don't become Kyle, please, Jonathan, don't become Kyle. But so I think the Sarah stuff actually does a good job of setting up that this is an ongoing problem with them and it is something that is there. I don't know, again, I mean, we've seen him have a drink in previous episodes and he's been a dick. I don't know if it's specifically pointed out that he has a problem drinking, though, before this episode.
I would have liked. I agree with the Sarah thing. Is really solid. I think I would have liked to see that before this moment with Lana in this specific incident, where because it felt like a very justified time for him to be out having a couple of drinks, as opposed to okay, well clearly this is a regular thing that he just does all the time, and that's why they're all used to it, which is the context given. I feel like I needed to establish that before there was an actual reason for it.
Yeah, like I say, because I mean that plays out in the rest of the same scene, so that didn't,
it does, yeah.
That didn't bother me. I mean, I still don't like Kyle.
No, I don't like Kyle either.
But even the way he tries to talk to Sarah after she gives him some food, and it is like the drunk dad, and she's just like, nah, you know what, I'm too old for this shit now. That's what she says, but that's basically the sentiment.
She's like, we're not doing this.
Yeah, and she goes to meet Jonathan, who she did ask out on a technical date. And he did, it was a sweet scene. I thought, the asking out scene. That's why I was just going to say though, the actual rescue of Kyle goes back in to get his buddy, and Clark has to swoop in and sort of put out some of the flames because the beams are coming down and they're going to crush them if he doesn't. And he's trying to do. He doesn't want to swoop in completely because he's still just standing there as Clark Kent. He has to sort of do it from a distance with some freeze breath. Although Kyle does notice that there's frost all of a sudden on the beams.
I mean,
bit suspicious.
How long would it have taken for him to just sip into the super suit for and then just go in publicly?
I think it's more the questions of why is Superman showing up in this tiny town for a relatively small incident.
Is that really a question?
I think for something this small it is. It's not like a nuclear power plant starting to go in a small town. This is just a building.
He was doing
on fire.
a flyby.
He
I'd buy this. I'd buy that people in this world think that Superman just does flybys.
I'm giving you an explanation that I would accept if they gave it to me. I don't necessarily need one.
No, I mean, honestly, I'm nitpicking a little bit. It's not terrible. The explanation's fine, but I'm just digging my heels in.
Yeah, I was fine with that. Clark, and I think what it does well with this episode, because I don't think the Jonathan stuff's all great. There's times where I feel like I was getting the bullet points of a story rather than actually just getting the story, which is specifically the fact that he decides to drink, and then the very next time we see him, it's him running into Jordan and Sarah, and he's immediately starting to yell drunk things at them, and that's that's the story.
It is, and then the very next time, not counting when they walk off and meet the parents, is the next day or whenever it is when he's just apologizing to the family.
I think it's just later that night when he's sober up a bit.
Okay.
I did like Lois and Clark's reaction. I like that Clark could smell it first because he's got the super sense, but then once they get close enough,
before he's even there.
But once they get close to talk to them, Lois can smell it too, and it's like, oh, that's not just superpowers. I can smell it. I
think the thing is where he goes, "How can you tell?" She's like, "Your dad can smell it." He goes, "And now I can too. I think the whole village can smell it."
So what I appreciate here, I like the idea that, because I don't love the flashbacks, and we'll talk about the flashbacks specifically in a second. But what I do like about it is that it doesn't use this flashbacks or his backstory to build a connection to Jordan in this episode. It actually does it to build a connection with Jonathan, who is, and it kind of like points out something that lots of people ignore when they talk about Superman, which is that a lot of the things he goes through are actually quite relatable. So the idea that the normal kid, at least for now, feels like he wants to spread his wings, and his girlfriend dumps him finally. So the last tether he was holding on to from his old life has been severed, and he finally has a bit. And although I do like that, a couple of details here I did really like. One, I like that he doesn't really take it out on Jordan. He gets really pissed, but he doesn't take it out on him. And two, though, Jordan, for the first time, at least in the show that we've seen, tries to be the big brother to him. He tries to step in. The end of the scene where he's had the phone call, he tries to say, "Oh, that sucks." He tries to comfort him, and Jonathan just walks off in an angry fit. And what I liked about it is that it shows that he's not used to being the one that needs some help. He's used to being the one that's there for Jordan. So the idea that it's flipped is really uncomfortable for him, I think.
It is. And Jordan keeps up this trend, just when they get home, he's the one who explains it to the parents this time, and is like, "Hey, go easy on him," sort of thing.
I think what trend I'm liking here is that they both look out for the other one, despite the fact that they still sometimes dip into shitty teenager attitude, but they always seem to snap out of it a bit later when they've had time to calm down.
And it's always don't know, I say tensions run high at points. That the teenage brothers, that's going to happen. But whenever it gets too serious, or the situation is a real genuine thing, it's like, all right, forget about whatever petty little thing was going on before.
Yeah, because I joked a couple episodes ago about Jonathan trying to talk to Clark and Lois about his brother, oh yeah, let's have a talk about him because he's right. And I kind of felt like Jordan saying to the parents what happened to him that day was kind of the alternate. It was Jordan saying, "Hey, I'm going to tell them about what happened." And I kind of
it was kind of like the football thing more,
yeah.
So.
And I kind of liked that they both do this for each other. It's kind of without realising that they are actually kind of there for each other in a really mature way, even though they're still petty teenagers sometimes in the heat of the moment.
That's okay. They are teenagers.
And I actually, what? If you told me this on paper, I might have hated it. But I did kind of like Jonathan looking Clark in the eyes and saying, "This town's my kryptonite. Smallville's my kryptonite." In a really shitty teenager way. It played it just right, where it didn't come off as stupid.
It's the sort of where they could have they probably did pull a very similar line in Smallville, and it was terrible. Or it would have been if they didn't do it.
The problem with Smallville is they'd barely named it kryptonite yet, and all of a sudden people are saying, "No, this is my kryptonite."
Okay. I'm not even talking about specifically the kryptonite thing, but they did it a lot in the early episodes.
Oh yes, they
taking something that we know from Superman, forcing it into a weird question.
Yes, but here's the difference though. In Smallville, it was a reference for us that the characters were unaware of because they didn't know he was going to become Superman yet. Here, Jonathan's making a reference to an in-universe thing that he understands and knows. He's referencing real life to him.
Yes. Okay.
It's not wink wink.
Yeah, that's true.
So there is a huge difference, I think. But anyway, so there's good things about it. I do think some of the elements are a little bit rushed, and I don't know if we really needed a scene. I mean, I guess it's just there for the kid from last episode to attack Jordan at the end. But the scene with Sarah and Jordan, where Sarah's kind of apologizing for yelling at Jonathan, I feel like the whole let's just be friends for a while thing. I'm like, do we even need this scene? Like, I feel like nothing
it exists to reset the status quo of okay, forget about the date.
I don't really think it even needs to exist though. Really, when you think, because they were sort of in a maybe they will, maybe they won't situation anyway. The fact that they kind of had a date, but the way it ended, I don't even know if you needed to say, "Hey, we're back to officially just being friends."
I think it was more so that he doesn't ask her out on another date next episode and goes through her doing it then, I guess.
Yeah, but we're clearly going down this path at some point. So I just
see at some point. Yeah, I know. I also think it's a relatively redundant scene, just because I really like the scene of them at the fair.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's very sweet when they're talking to each other. Yeah.
Again, the two of them having issues and talking about it quite openly to each other is pretty refreshing for these shows. And it doesn't actually get into the actual conversation because they get interrupted by drunk Jonathan. But just the idea of they were going down this path again. It's just been really good in that department.
Yeah, I guess all I'm really saying is that scene felt like a CW trope that you could. I think you could cut that scene. The only thing that would feel missing is you would be like, why is Jordan smiling on his way home? Because that's the thing that I'll give the scene is that it ends with them both feeling really happy about their relationship right now.
There was a weird laugh. I don't know if you caught this. It was at the very end, after they so it does the bit where they're still talking, quote unquote, but we stop hearing it and the camera's pulling out. But it's really soon after it stops them, after we stop hearing them talking, and as it's pulling back, and she lets out the weirdest, loudest laugh, like he's just said the funniest thing ever, and it's so forced and unnatural, and it's clear just laugh like he said something funny. It's the worst acting she's had yet in the entire show, which is has been pretty good for the most part, but this stood out as horrendous.
We have to say worse. You could just say it's been the one notably bad moment.
I realised that's why I clarified afterwards.
Worst implies there's lots of other bad, and this is the.
That's why I clarified afterwards that it hasn't been that bad.
Maybe that's maybe he flipped the kryptonite line. Maybe he's, and obviously her not knowing who Clark is, but maybe he said something like, social interactions are my kryptonite, and she thought that was really funny and edgy.
Joe, all I could say is I'm glad this scene wasn't set in the barn. Because that's what this scene was. It was the Clark and Lana scene from the end of every episode of Smallville.
Yeah, I'm going to say this though. Jordan has way more likable qualities than Clark ever did on Smallville. He's not a plank of wood. He feels like a real human being.
That's very true. And Sarah's obviously infinitely better than that Lana.
Oh yes. Hell, the Lana in this is infinitely better. You could intersect this 40-year-old woman into Smallville. It would have been better than. And I don't mean to shit on Kristen Crook, right? It's not her fault.
It's a little bit her fault.
Well, no, because anyone with a brain shouldn't have cast her in a role. Ultimately, someone said we're putting her in a TV show when all they were doing was opening up this poor woman to ridicule because she's terrible, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe you could critique her now if she's still trying to make this acting thing work, and I believe she is. She's somewhere.
Literally just finished a legal drama in Canada,
and maybe she's great in that show. I don't know, but
it's probably not.
What I'm saying is that but she was cast in that role. She was probably 18. She was probably young and stupid, and someone told her she could be a star, and she was like, "Yeah." And hell, she was friends with Alison Mack as well. So I mean, questionable choices all
kind
around.
of though.
I don't buy for a second that Annette O'Toole was friends with Alison Mack.
All right. She probably wasn't, and Rosenbaum probably wasn't. But I think most of the core cast were relatively friendly with each other.
We'll see. I wonder how truthful they are about that now, though.
I think it might have been Kristen Crook that said that she did get invited along by Alison Mack at one point. And
she did. There was some tangential connection, but it was clear that she severed it, or didn't even start it.
She was like, "Nah, I'm not into this weird shit."
Yes, and probably the best decision. You know what? If that's the one good decision she ever made, that was the best one to make a good decision. It's a pretty good,
some terrible acting's pretty harmless at the end of the day.
No, it's harmless. Yes, I mean I'll make fun of it, but it's harmless. Yes. Yeah, a lot of bad acting in Smallville. That's the key point here I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
Yeah, the flashbacks. We need to talk about the flashbacks. So, like I say, I do like that it's trying to connect to what Jonathan's going through. I like that comparison between them. The actual flashbacks of Clark with the balaclava on, like making them put big CRT TVs back, and
I did find it amusing the other when they were like state of the art, cutting edge TV.
Yes.
And it's this huge, massive thing. I was like, those were the days. Don't miss those. So big, so heavy. I genuinely, I feel sorry for them a little bit carrying those big, massive things.
How long have we been doing this, and you still buckle when I roll out a frame, and you don't just continue to what the natural point is?
No, that was genuinely just me. I was going to go on that whether you were sat there or not. I genuinely was going to say that. Because I was thinking that while I was watching it.
Yeah, well, anyway, so you got Martha Kent in a bad wig. Also, I don't know if it was a wig, but the guy with the powers who died, his hair was pretty rough looking. I don't know if it was just because they messed it up so much, or if it was a wig, but that also looked pretty rough.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
But so Martha's in the wig. Don't get me wrong. The scene it leads to at the end, where this bench that she would always sit on, and people would talk to her, and she would help people in the town. Like they name it the Martha Kent bench, right?
A memorial plaque.
Yeah, the best of Smallville, it says. Nice sentiment into all of it. The flashbacks themselves, which were thankfully very brief, they didn't eat up a lot of time, but they weren't that good. The teen actor, I think, was probably
I think that was the biggest one, because I don't hate them in concept. I don't hate anything that it did. In fact, I probably like what it did, for the most part. It was just the execution of them was a bit rough.
Also, I mean, I realise you wanted that last flashback to be on the bench you've just put a plaque on, but who waits for a train on a bench that's not in the train station? I'm just...
I agree, which was really frustrating, because I liked the transition into the scene.
Yes.
Like into the flashback. It was like way better than most of Arrow's transitions were, because those got rough.
Oh, they got really bad.
I thought this was a nice transition into the flashback. It was seamless. And then I realised the context as it went on. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, very, very odd. Very odd.
But I do like the point of the flashback that Clark was, again, showing that he was still, for the most part, a relatively normal teenager, dealing with the other stuff as well, right? But that's kind of the point, is he is still one of us at the end of the day. As much as he is an alien by birth, he is, human by society raising. That's the point. He still has shitty, angry teenager emotions, and yells at his mom and then doesn't really mean it. Normal stuff. So I appreciate that in premise. Just could have had a better actor.
Better actor, and maybe also part of the problem. And I realised that there was a show called Smellville that, in theory, was supposed to do this, but I think the idea of the only scenes we see of him, or at least the first few scenes we see of him, being the edgy, like, angry teenager, and yeah, he has the scene where he calms down and apologises, and he shouldn't have said the things he said, but I think having no context of his regular range and like his better qualities at that age make it like just feel a bit more one note.
It kind of goes back to what I was saying with Kyle, where I was like, I feel like I liked the point, but I feel like I needed to see some other stuff first. It's kind of the same here, where I feel I needed a baseline first of where we were, rather than me just having to jump into the context as it was. Yeah.
So. Yeah, so luckily very short, but I wasn't super. After the first one, whenever it went to the flashback, I was like, oh god, please don't be too bad. Like, yeah. and they never went into embarrassing territory, I don't think, but there was always the risk. Like after the first one was kind of ropey, I was like, oh god, these might get really bad.
It was always in the back of your head, that feeling, but I don't think it ever quite reached that point that the feeling was justified, but more it teetered on the edge, a few times though.
Yeah. Also, this being Clark leaving home just doesn't have quite the same visual impact as standing in the field with Ma Kent as the sun is like rising behind them and John Williams music's playing. I mean, it's unfair to compare it, but it's like they're at a bench next to the train station.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit unfair, but yeah.
Why is he getting a train?
Well, he's not going to run. I mean,
sure, why not? Go for a super jog.
I mean, he could just run across the country and drag his stuff there, but he wants to be normal.
Mm-hmm. That's why he's stopping armed robberies.
Yeah. Well, he can't. He wants to be normal, but he can't help himself. He has to stand up for what's right.
Yeah. Hell, I mean, if they do this sort of thing again, I think even going even younger might even be a. I mean, I get they want to compare it to the current teenagers. That's why it has to be about that age. But
you say that they mentioned that he was older when he left.
A little
by
older.
like 2 or 3 years, I think he said.
a little older. But I mean, he's still comparable age.
Yeah.
You know, the idea that Jonathan's talking about like moving somewhere, it's a little bit early, admittedly, because he's talking about staying with like a friend's family while he finishes high school because he wants to be in the city. But it's not, you know, a couple of years and then we're talking college age, and then at that point, and we'll see how the show either stops him from going to college. But then I suppose with a character who can fly around anywhere within a couple of minutes, I suppose you don't really need to stop them. I mean, you can go pick them up at any point. We don't have to explain how they keep coming back.
No, not at all.
So the show has a nice crutch in that sense.
And who knows what powers they'll have by that point.
That's very true. Yeah. There'll be a super toe crust and well, that's Jonathan's power. He's not kicked in yet.
It's a great power.
There's going to be tons of crust. He'll be walking around and it'll be like those pencil shavings, like a trail of footprints just on the floor as he's walking around in his bare feet.
Lovely.
But
is that how we're leaving this?
That's how we're leaving this. It is worth mentioning this is going on a break now for a couple of months. We're back. I think the next episode's about May 18th. So look forward to the return. We'll be reviewing it when it comes back, of course. But yeah, it's on a bit of a gap. Partly because this is normal on network TV, but also because they shut down production for like at least a month or something like that when they had an outbreak on set of the current the virus. So. Yes.
Shit happens.
I don't know if it's still not allowed to say it on YouTube, but I'm just playing it safe. I mean, maybe it's okay now. It's been a while, but
yeah, let's not risk it.
Yeah, you know the Rona.
I hope that's not enough. Can we just call it Big Rona every time?
Big Rona. I don't care. Actually, one final point is I still get a little chuckle out of every time the other reporter lady, like, cause at some point in this episode she says something like, yeah, my reporter brain's like firing and all that. I'm like, you're standing with Lois Lane, a world famous reporter.
And she does the acronym, you know, what would Lois Lane do? It's not just the one L. That was the bit that got me. It wasn't just what would Lois do, it was what would Lois Lane do?
All right, that's the episode. Let us know what you thought of this one in the comments. Like and subscribe. Liking super important on YouTube. It is the easiest way to support us because it helps us with the YouTube algorithm and more people will find us. But you can support us financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and help keep all the content coming. Catch us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?